Just welcome everyone again. As you're coming in, if you could mute yourself, please. It is great to have so many people. Southeast Atlanta is well represented tonight. Thanks so much again for joining. Representative Draper's joining now as well.
And we have a great crowd tonight. Thanks for being here.
And to change your name, if you click at the bottom of the screen, if you click participants, a list of everybody in the meeting will come up, and you can hover over your name, or you can just take your mouse and find your face on video and hover your mouse over it, click the 3 periods in the corner, and then you can take your name and you can just add your neighborhood at the end. So I'm going to do that right now for mine and add Boulevard Heights, or Boho for short. All right, and again, I'm just going to be muting a few people, if just FYI. So if you can mute yourself as you come in. Jacob, you want to get us started?
Yeah, sure. Happy to kick us off. Well, thanks, Chris, and thanks everybody for joining. And thank you especially to our state legislators for joining us for tonight's session. We're super excited to host this 2025 Legislative Priorities Forum to really give folks in Southeast Atlanta an opportunity to hear from our representatives about their priorities for the year and how they're going to make progress on some of the issues that are most important to us here in Southeast Atlanta. So my name's Jacob. I live in Reynoldstown. I'm part of the Southeast Atlanta Neighbors Take Action group, and we're super excited to be hosting this forum tonight. I'm going to turn it over to Chris to kick us off with introductions and talk through the agenda for today.
Excellent. So we've got a little bit of opening. We'll have an opening, a couple rounds where we'll get the legislators who are able to be here. I think we have 3 or 4 on right now. We'll kind of honor schedules as needed. Thank you again for your time. Those of you starting the session this week and joining us. And then we'll have question and answer after that. So what is Southeast Atlanta Neighbors Take Action? Some of you have been in the neighborhoods or communities for a long time, haven't heard of us before or just popped up. That's because this group, we just formed over the summer in the 2024 campaign cycle. And we're a group we're trying to bring neighborhoods together to do the 3 things up on the slide. Learn about state and local issues, build relationships with elected officials that have the power to affect change, and cultivate community with neighbors in taking action on those issues. My experience in campaigns has always been that there's all this excitement up to the moment of the election, and then you just don't stay in touch with all the people you've gotten to know volunteering, organizing in that process. And we're trying to disrupt that trend and build community in the process. I'm here with this group. Paul, could you come off mute for a second, just give a little perspective on why this organization should exist when there's as many neighborhood organizations and an organization like SAN in the community?
So I think all of us are serious about taking action. We came together because 40 or so of us were knocking on doors in the presidential campaign. And I've always wanted the campaign to sort of continue to keep connection to the elected officials that we work for, and to be ready to take some action. The other part of it is I've always felt that our part of town didn't get quite, maybe this is a chip on my shoulder, that our part of town maybe doesn't get as much attention. So maybe this group can draw a little more elected official attention to some of the issues that exist in Southeast Atlanta. That's kind of my purpose. And I hope we all hang together and we're ready to work in the next election.
Thanks, Paul.
Thanks, Paul. So I'm going to talk a little bit about some of our ground rules for this evening. So one thing I just want to keep in mind is that people on this call have a wide range of experience when it comes to engaging with and tuning into state politics. For some of you, you have made your career in advocating and being an engaged citizen. For some of you all, this is your first time really getting plugged into local issues. regardless of your experience and background, we're so happy that you're here, and we're so happy that you're taking time out of your Thursday evening to engage with your neighbors and engage with our state legislators. So as we're going throughout the session today, please feel free to use the chat to ask questions, to get more context, or even just clarify things that folks have said, just so that we can really use this as a learning experience for all of us. Second, let's really just make sure that we're assuming the best with one another, especially when there might be a difference of opinion. We're all here because we really just care about our community and care about these issues that are so important to us. So let's just really keep that front and center with any potential disagreements that come about. Lastly, after we go through our opening round of prepared questions, moderators, so myself and Chris, will elevate questions and ideas for elected officials in the chat. During that time, please make sure that you're staying muted unless you've been called on to ask a question.
All right, and I dropped in the chat too that a lot of you put time into writing out questions in advance. There's more than we can possibly get to. So if you don't feel like legislators have gotten to it in the opening rounds, once we start the Q&A, drop it in the chat, and please just have patience with us. We're going to do our absolute best here to get a variety of opinions weighing in based on kind of who submits in the chat. But you can wait to submit questions until we start the question and answer round. So we can get started here, recognizing that it's a gift to have so many legislators on the call with us. And as hard as it can be sometimes in talking about things we care about, if we could keep answers at about 2 minutes for these opening rounds, I think it'll make sure that we get to as many people as we can. So I will kind of just come off mute and say about 2 minutes. And if we could start with Senator Orrock, who's been a big part in the big success of this organization, helped and been from the start in thinking about Southeast Atlanta neighbors. And so we could start with you, and each of the representatives on could answer the 2 questions I just dropped in the chat in about 2 minutes. So which Southeast Atlanta neighborhoods do you represent? And what is an issue you specialize in or are particularly focused on in this session? And you're muted, Senator Orrock. If you can unmute yourself. Here, I'll fix that. I can still muted. Let's see, I'll ask you to unmute. If you could hover your mouse over your screen or where you see your face, Senator Orrock, and then the 3 periods in the top right corner. To unmute. That's not working. Okay, maybe it's just where I saw Senator Parent joined us as well. And Senator Orrock, if you could just try to find that. If you click to participants, find your name there as well. Oh, actually, maybe it works now. You're good.
Yeah, I was reading the questions. I went to your you directed us to the sheet where there were questions, and that's why I needed to work at getting back to the main screen. Hey, everybody.
No worries.
And wonderful to have this opportunity and fabulous participation. I've been a resident of in Ormwood Park for, Paul and I probably have 100 years between us, but maybe 50 years each. And so happy to have this opportunity and to be with my colleagues as well. The good news, I will say at the start, is that there are all sorts of incredibly talented and dedicated and sharp people with great life experience that are running for office and getting elected as Democrats coming to the General Assembly. And so that the future is bright. I will say that up front. We have a legislative agenda as Democrats. A primary thing that I've been working on for some years, and that is in public education, to get our funding formula shifted so that we have an opportunity weight for kids in poverty. In other words, more money going to schools in low-income areas. And in particular, we've got a bill that we're calling the Good Faith Bill, which creates the structure for schools plagued with poverty and high needs kids who need a lot of intentionality and services to get the money to fund that. So that's a particular bill, and we've got a coalition working on it, and the Georgia Budget and Policy Institute is on board with us. The kind of a late breaking thing is that there's a bill been introduced in the Senate to make Atlanta turn over jail space to the county sheriff. And we're going to fight that like the Dickens, because it's unconstitutional and ill-conceived, and Fulton County Commission is with us on battling against that. That's a late breaking news. Housing is a massive.
That's about 2 minutes there, Senator Rock. Yeah, finish up your thought.
Yeah, I was just going to say housing and affordable childcare are two big issues, and we've got some experts on this call with me that can talk further about those. But we want to really put heavy infusion, $1 billion for more affordable housing, $1 billion investment in early childhood development.
Thank you, Senator Parent.
Yeah. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for having me this evening. This is going to be my 11th session in the state Senate, and very proud to represent some of the Southeast Atlanta neighborhoods. I do not have any of Fulton County, so all of my Southeast Atlanta neighborhoods are on the DeKalb County side. I don't think y'all really go north of 20 in this organization. If you're wrong, I'll mention that I have, Edgewood and Kirkwood, but East Atlanta and south of there are also in the 44th Senate District. And Senator Orrock didn't brag on herself that she's a member of our Senate leadership team in our caucus as a longtime serving secretary office holder, and I serve as the chair of our Senate Democratic Caucus. Two issues that I'm going to continue to work on that I've been really passionate about over my tenure include access to quality and affordable early childhood education, sometimes called childcare, but we know all of it is really education. And we do really have an affordability crisis in our state, an affordability and access crisis, and it impacts so many things because 90% of a child's brain is formed by age 5. And we do have a good universal pre-K program. It can be improved a lot, but it's still, Georgia was a leader. That's for 4-year-olds. So we don't really have anything near, definitely nothing near universal for any children younger than that. So that's been a big push. And there is some growing recognition of the problem. And the other is within the bucket of workforce development and sort of post-secondary education acquisition. You could think of it maybe as being able to achieve credentials in trades or a 4-year degree. It could be either one, but we need to do better in providing affordable opportunities for our students to get post-secondary education. So I've done work on things like dual enrollment and what I'll just sort of broadly call apprenticeship programs, and working with the university system and the technical college system of Georgia to make sure that our kids are able to get the skills they need, and also to just choose the career and have all the opportunities that we would want them to have, which also incidentally helps our economy. So thank you for having me.
Yeah, appreciate it, Senator Parent. Representative Olalier, you can go next.
I appreciate it. Good evening, everyone. I'm Rep. Phil Olalier, entering my 3rd year, so 2nd term here with the General Assembly. I live in Summerhill with my wife and 2 boys. I was the neighborhood president in Summerhill prior to running for office in 2022. Neighborhoods, my district is squarely in Fulton County. Summerhill, obviously, parts of Grant Park, a little bit of Peoplestown. I know Reynoldstown was mentioned earlier. Reynoldstown, Cabbagetown both sit within District 59. In terms of legislative priorities, really educational opportunity and economic security are my top two focuses. Educational opportunity starting from birth on the way through early childhood, pre-K access, K through 12 funding. I know Senator Orrock had mentioned the opportunity weight. That was a big focus of mine on the House side, as well as post-secondary access for technical colleges and college opportunities. And then housing affordability. So strengthening renters' rights, as well as getting the state out of the way of municipalities doing and knowing what's best for its housing needs. And that's both the supply and an incentivizing increased supply so that we can tamp down a lot of housing pressure facing Atlantans and families who are looking to step into homeownership, as well as getting housing that's offline back online and focusing on code enforcement and things of that sort. Really appreciate the opportunity being here with you all, and I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Thank you, Representative Lallier and Representative Draper.
Hi. So thanks everyone for having me. My name is Syra Draper. I represent the 90th district. So like Senator Parent, I have a DeKalb-based district and very proud to represent some Atlanta neighborhoods within that, including Edgewood and Kirkwood and East Atlanta. So thrilled to be here. I'm also in my third year in the legislature, second term, and some things that I am going to focus on this year. So one's a continuation of my work and one's somewhat new. So I've been a very loud advocate on the voting rights front. I'm an elections lawyer and have a lot of experience with elections and voting rights here in Georgia. So have been very vocal on issues pertaining to that, especially since so much of our policy is actually heavily influenced by election deniers here in Georgia, for better or for worse. Well, mostly for worse. So that I will continue to do. I am hopeful that maybe because they have had the win that they wanted in 2024, there will be a little bit less passion around that issue. But when you're dealing with people who don't accept data and facts and live in a world of conspiracy theory, you don't know what to expect. So we will see what this session brings with respect to voting rights. And then the other issue I'm very interested in this session in particular is gun safety. I'm always interested in gun safety. But with the tragedy that occurred in Appalachia High School early last year, the Republicans are finally, well, I don't want to give them too much credit. It has opened the door to a discussion about reasonable gun safety laws. And my suspicion is they're going to be more interested in half measures and performative measures because they very much are in bed with the gun lobby. And what I really, I'm looking for opportunities to expand that door to actually pass some real legislation to help our kids and keep our kids safe. But to the extent the majority party is not willing to go there, I certainly don't want them pulling the wool over Georgians' eyes and taking credit for doing things that they're not doing. So I want to see real measures on gun safety because our kids deserve it.
Thank you, Representative Draper and Representative Schofield. I don't think Representative Miller's on yet. We'll go to Representative Schofield next.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Soon to be evening, or it is evening now, but I am happy to be here. I represent Fulton County, parts of Atlanta. So I start at Moreland and I go down to Union City. I actually live in the South Atlanta portion of the district. A couple of things that I'm working on. I'm on the health committee, so a lot of things that I do are health. So I have a lot of bills centered around environmental health and environmental justice. And that includes us having rights and access to clean soil, water, and air. And these are continuations of bills that I've worked on. I also, like Senator Orrock, we have worked on for a couple of years. I've co-sponsored the Students Living in Poverty Act over in the House. The third bill that we will be working on is to put some parameters and barriers around the bad actors, the HOAs. We know that there's been problems with HOAs overstepping their authority. So we had a bad bill last session that that we introduced or tried to get a hearing on about putting some barriers around HOAs. And I've got a lot of other bills, but I'll stop there. And what was the other thing that you asked? I've been in the House for 8 years. This is my 4th term. Pleasure to serve you all. I put my contact in the chat box too, in case anybody wants to reach me. Every Friday I have coffee with Kim. And so it's a virtual meeting and you can bring your favorite cup of coffee, your favorite mug, and we can chat. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that and for sharing the contact information. And just as Jacob said at the top, that we're really trying to appeal to a wide variety of people in Southeast Atlanta with these types of meetings. So someone who's following the legislature and the assembly very closely versus somebody who might just be tuning in. So it's something we're hearing is that as representatives or senators are focused on particular issues, you might be thinking about engaging after this meeting with whoever represents you in your neighborhood, or also if you hear somebody that's a specialist in something, that might be good to build a relationship. And thinking about if that's in your area of work or of particular concern for you. So some of these issues have already been addressed, not surprisingly, things that you all are working on. You know your neighborhoods, you know your who you're representing. But we had many people fill out a form to say, what are the issues that are top of mind for them? What do they care about? We made it into this word cloud that you can see here. So everything that's on there was mentioned at least a few times by somebody, like one of the 40 or 50 people that submitted this. And we're not going to go in any particular order here. I just want to open it up to the legislators. They take a look at what you see here and taking a look at these 3 questions. What is an issue or idea that's listed there where there's genuine opportunity for bipartisan cooperation? What is an issue or idea there that you really feel pressure to defend with a Republican majority? And is there something that's not there that you think should be there or that you're actively working on? And I will open that up to any of the legislators here right now.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
I'd love to start with this question about genuine opportunities for bipartisan cooperation, because I want to just level set with everybody. And you said there's folks here who are very involved with state politics and maybe some that aren't as involved, but let's just level set. We have a Republican trifecta here in Georgia. I know in Atlanta, it's Democratic run, but at the state level, Republicans control the Senate, the House, and the governor's office. So what that means effectively for us is that all the agenda is set by Republicans. Which bills get to committee is dependent on Republicans. Republicans decide which bills become law. And because Democrats are getting closer to taking the House and taking away the Republican trifecta, there has been a lot of aggressive behavior on the Republican side to keep Democrats down. So that means that, most Democratic bills do not go through. We pass hundreds of bills every year. A small fraction of that are Democratic bills. Usually they're less substantial bills if any Democratic bills pass at all. So I just, wanted to give that context because that is the reality in which we are operating. Now, is that to say that there's absolutely no opportunities for bipartisan cooperation? No. I'm sure all the legislators can speak to this. Sometimes you're successful by getting either a bill or amending a bill and giving it to a Republican. So it's got the Republican's name on it, but it's either got some of your language on it or maybe it's wholly your idea. We're able to get stuff across the finish line that way. But I wanted to comment that today, but Governor Kemp gave his State of the State address. Where basically he lays out, his priorities for the direction of Georgia. And, he has a lot of influence over the General Assembly. I mean, certainly he has the power of the veto. So if there's anything he doesn't like that the General Assembly passes, he can veto it. So there's a lot of cooperation there. And I found it really interesting that he talked about an opportunity for bipartisan cooperation with respect to tort reform. And I don't see tort reform on this list, but it's basically, you've got the insurance companies and you've got the lawyers, and he's saying that insurance companies and premiums are going up because of the juries, because of the court system, and because the trial lawyers, and the trial lawyers are saying, no, it's not because of us. We're just giving people access to the courts. It's because the insurance companies are making too much money. So that's the battle. Governor Kemp is very much on the side of the insurance companies. Democrats have traditionally and probably will continue to be on the side of giving people access to the justice system. But I just found it so entertaining that the one issue where he said there's an opportunity for bipartisan cooperation is his priority item, as opposed to any of these other issues like Medicaid expansion or education or healthcare, where there would be a genuine desire from Democrats to work in a bipartisan manner.
Well, I would add to that, Sarah, that he's extending the olive branch for it to be bipartisan. Why? Because he doesn't have the votes in the Republican Party of the Republican legislators to pass draconian measures that deny people their access to a day in court. That's just a sidebar. The LGBTQ is a fairly small letter typeface size, right up there between education and affordable. But the culture wars are alive and well in Georgia. And I believe the first bill that was introduced in the Senate Bill 1, is an anti-trans bill, barring trans girls and women, and extending all the way up into post-secondary from competing in sports as a trans person. So it's a life and death issue. I mean, that's one of the cultural war issues, and LGBT and particularly trans are people are under heavy scrutiny, and they're attacking them, and so that is a huge concern for many of us. And then education, we've spoken about, and actually there are Republicans in the legislature that come from an education background. They may have a spouse or a child or a relative that is actively working in the education field, and they've pushed back against vouchers and for private school vouchers and so on and so forth. So that's a place where there's some bipartisan, where they're both Republicans and Democrats that see eye to eye on investing in public education and protecting and infusing education with more money, and moving forward on literacy in particular. I'll pass the baton to any colleague that wants to grab it.
Yeah, I'm happy to jump in real quick and speak to housing, which just smacks you in the face, right?
Yeah.
There are two bills. I actually was speaking with a Republican yesterday. It's a Democrat and Republican issue. As housing supply shrinks in the metro area, people are having to move their families out into the suburbs and exurbs just to find affordable housing. And so it's an issue that's on the mind of both parties. I'll focus on one bill. It's called the Choice Act. I believe Representative Dale Washburn down in Macon will be leading it again with one of our colleagues, Spencer Fry. I'll be co-sponsoring it this year. And essentially, it's incentivizing municipalities that are addressing zoning issues and making zoning changes to existing codes that increases density. So you're talking about the width of homes, the height of homes, again, anything that would make it easier to increase the supply and increase density in our communities and cities. And again, it's as the supply increases, the hope is it becomes a little bit more affordable to purchase those homes. And the state can incentivize it by partnering with the federal government to provide support, financial support, and a range of other incentives to those municipalities that are increasing or at least creating changes to their current zoning and permitting codes that allow for that density. I would say another one would be hedge funds. Hedge funds are coming in and just gobbling up full swaths of starter homes. And folks are renting those homes, and when issues crop up, they have no one to point to. You have LLCs and shell companies and, just phantom entities that no one can get a hold of and hold responsible for things that need to be addressed or fixed at one's home. And so the idea would be to create a registry where you have human beings, you have individuals, you have names and contact information of people you can reach out to when issues come up. There was a bill passed last term, the Safe at Home Act, which created a definition around habitability. Again, an effort to ensure that landlords are doing their part to maintain and manage habitable homes for the folks and families they're renting their homes to. It's still a pretty vague definition. It was a step in the right direction. There's still a lot of work that needs to be done on that front, but those are a few items that I'm looking forward to taking and running forward with this upcoming session.
Okay, I will address again some of the healthcare issues. We've been dealing with the cost of medications through decisions that are made by the we call them PBMs, the pharmacy benefits managers, and these decisions on cost sharing and what we're paying for medication are and restricting laws have forced many pharmacies to go out of business, and we're creating a pharmacy desert in some of our areas. So I'm working to address that, as well as we know that have not fully expanded Medicaid, and as the governor talked about today, he gave some numbers and some maths that I disagree with. His math ain't mathing for us. But
That's right.
but I have I've been working all summer on some interventions that will supplement and help end some of the disparities and get people the help that they need, especially in the area of mental health. So doing a lot of work with mental health, and particularly mental health in schools, mental health in those that are incarcerated. We also are working on healthcare and improving the system for healthcare that are in the jails and in the prisons.
Back to Phil's discussion of affordable health care, is there any chance the governor might put some of that surplus into the housing trust fund that's existed in the state since Zell Miller was elected?
There's a rumor that he might, but it is so far unconfirmed. And
Yeah,
been conflicting signals, I believe. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say Senator Parent's spot on. Last year it was $3 million. Believe the commissioner for community affairs, Kevin Tanner, is that him?
Behavioral health.
Chris.
Yep. He's
Chris
advocating. He was asked. We have budget hearings next week, and so each department is able to present their wish list in the form of budget items. And he was, guessing at what that figure could be this year, Paul, and he was hoping for 50 million in the housing trust fund. We'll see. That housing trust fund is designated for the most part to support individuals who are homeless. And so it's pretty specific in the purposing of the funds within the housing trust fund. And It's something that we've looked to broaden so that it could address other housing challenges and issues, but for the most part, it's specifically designed to support homelessness.
You might want to look at the constitutional amendment behind that and see whether that's restricted. There had to be a constitutional amendment passed to create that fund because the money you put in there stays in there. So if the state put $1 billion in there, it could revolve around. It would not come back into the state treasury and be a stimulus for a long period of time. And I believe that the wording of that is broad enough so you could do it for just normal affordable housing as opposed to just homeless housing. Be good to look at the amendment.
That's something I'll definitely look into. Thanks, Paul.
Senator Parent, if you want to pick something from here, it hasn't brought up yet.
Sure.
Yes.
I'll be brief. I know we are
Honestly, y'all are doing great. Frankly, like my little timer's going off, but this is like we're on the House floor. So well done. Yeah.
Oh, good. Glad we're not letting you down. Well, tagging back to what, Representative Draper said, the reality is I am sad to say that in looking at the list, there really are sort of vanishingly few of these that I think there's that much overlap between us and the Republicans. So, but I will mention a few things. I have worked very productively with some Republicans on improving our dual enrollment program so that more students are able to get those post-secondary skills they need without having to have the kind of, family money or loans or time investment that would be needed if they were starting fresh right after high school graduation. We also, our horrific maternal mortality rate did finally spur them, the Republicans, that is, into some action on Medicaid expansion up to a year postpartum. So that was, an area of bipartisan agreement and certainly wouldn't have happened without Democratic support. What I'm noticing recently is it's like when there's a crisis, they finally do something. And I wish they would be, more voters would know that and there would be more accountability on that. For example, the governor knows, and I presume most of his colleagues in the General Assembly know that they have sort of like a few crises level situations going on right now, and sort of that could turn into PR disasters. So because we've hit that level, he's sort of preemptively announcing some investments in those areas this year, to include the prison system, which has been absolutely horribly managed, neglected for many years. And the school hardening, right? Like we want to put all this money into school hardening, which, I wish that were the answer, right? I'm not saying I oppose the money because, I think it makes some sense in some instances, and certainly makes, I think, parents and kids feel safer going to school, which is sad that we even have to say that. But when you're talking about that and just spending more and more people's taxpayer money on that, as opposed to, I guess there's just no issue in their minds with the fact that it was totally legal in Georgia for the father to give the 14-year-old an AR-15, even when he had been like investigated by the FBI the year before. It's just madness, right? So, but it is an area of liability, this gun stuff and the danger kids feel that they're in, et cetera, when they're at school. This is a function of keeping an important state function is keeping its residents safe. And really there's another. So they see, okay, we know these things have sort of reached like a bit of a crisis level and we need to show that we're doing something. But I gotta be honest, like they wait for it to reach crisis level sometimes, and they did on maternal mortality. They are with the prisons, and then what they do is really not adequate. And he, unfortunately, for a lot of the other things on our list here that we care about, although, no one likes to pay taxes, they're calling for a lot more tax cuts. And when we're already being squeezed, like we can't recruit prison personnel. We've got prison people in corrections. They're not the officers, but that they work within the system. they make like welfare. They qualify for all kinds of public assistance, and the state troopers are paid too little. We have, teacher shortage, and it's just kind of like, okay, so you wait until it's an absolute crisis, and then announce you're going to put in 300 million more, but at the same time you're cutting taxes, so that's not all going to work out forever.
Senator Parent, building on what you're saying here about how it kind of takes crisis level to get it on the agenda for a lot of the things that we care a lot about. A lot of people reached out, and like people I've had conversations with as well, are trying to figure out, like, being in the minority. I think we're aware that that's a difficult situation, but we're not really all aware of kind of the levers that can be pulled, even if there aren't that many by the minority. But there are a lot of people in this group and in this meeting right now, who are willing to do things like they've testified at committee hearings before. They're people who've shown up for big demonstrations, who knock doors on issues and in campaigns. And I think there's a lot of desire, particularly with the inauguration coming up Monday. A lot of people are trying to figure out, like, how can I be active and get off my doom scrolling and like do something right now? And I would love to hear from you or others, like, in your time in the legislature, when has grassroots advocacy made a difference? Like, how can do we need to focus our energies on one or two of these to try to make it a crisis, or does it make sense to get really nuanced and niche and in that way? Like, give us a little advice on how we should engage.
Well, this is definitely one I want everyone to make sure that we've got some time to be heard. First of all, thank you all. I mean, showing up tonight shows that you care. Your questions and the preparation on this, very, very astute. Everything you listed, Chris, we are all very, very grateful. And yes, I've absolutely seen people showing up and educating Republicans on certain issues, or just having enough of a presence where there's a huge outcry that spooks them a little bit. Yes, I have absolutely seen that make a difference. And as the margins are more narrow, they will have to work harder and harder for every vote, which then gives us an opportunity, if we play our politics right, to hopefully gain leverage where they do need our votes to try to advance something that we care about, right? We've seen them come to us over the years to try to pick off a couple members of our caucus to get what they want, which is why it's important for all of us sometimes to stick together, because that's the only way we can get leverage, right? To force them to sort of like provide a negotiation where we can make progress on something you guys care about, right? They're not going to just like do that. So yes, all of it matters. Certainly, and I always say, yes, all of it matters. I always say, though, that the fastest way to get the policy outcomes you desire more for our state is going to involve, especially over the next years, volunteering in campaigns. It's not for everybody, but for those who are willing to hear it, you could volunteer for like an environmental organization, and Rep. Schofield's done great work, and Nan Orrock's been a leader on that for a bunch of years, and go down and testify against everything, and most of it, they're still going to pass. So we got to flip some seats. We got to flip some seats. Putting in some effort on that, time, talent, and treasure on campaigns will really go a long way to getting those outcomes, and a lot more.
And even when I would just add, even when you cannot, if you don't succeed in flipping the seat, mounting a significant campaign that requires the incumbent Republican to have to really go to the mat and fight like the fury to, raise the money and squeak by and win the seat back. That then makes that Republican much more wary of always voting party line when they know that there's opposition that has made a serious challenge. Maybe didn't beat him is the point, but move the needle. And so even an outright win is not the only way to make an impact on somebody that's sitting there and voting wrong. Quite frankly, they're all, you can look at over and over, like the gun issue is a great example of the public opinion in Georgia is really not with the majority party time after time, and certainly not on reproductive health is a significant example of that. So yes, Chair Lady Parent, who does a great job running our Senate caucus as the chair, spoke the truth on that it makes a difference to be involved and engaged in the politics of getting folks elected.
I'd also quickly add that you know, it's we are inundated with so many emails and data and requests. Don't be afraid to reach out to a decision maker or a lawmaker of consequence that's close to your issue. And what I mean is we may not have the power or be gatekeepers to get bills heard in committee or passed on the floor. But if you reached out to a chairwoman or a chairman to discuss an issue and really personalize it and tell your story around how that issue has affected you directly. It could be a family member, it could be a child, it could be a colleague. Those stories stick. They remember those stories, and so often a lot of the advocacy. And I love here. I'm looking at a lot of friends who I know on this call, and thank you so much for being here. But so much of the advocacy I see is going after the committed, and we are in your corner, by your side, in lockstep with many of the issues and priorities that are near and dear to our neighbors and friends. Unfortunately, to Rep. Draper's first point, the reality is we don't have as much decision-making power, but there are other men and women who do, and they need to hear from you, one. And secondly, I'm remembering the fight that we had regarding Senate Bill 233. That was the private school voucher bill. And so much of again, I think the focus has to be there were Republicans, especially in more rural parts of the state, who were on the fence, who needed to hear from their constituents, who needed to hear from their educators, who needed to hear from their students, who needed to hear from their community. And we might not be the best messenger, but we can definitely organize and pull other like-minded Georgians in their district who,
Right.
trust me, legislators are going to respond to everyone, but they're going to prioritize their constituents. And so our ability to leverage our know-how and to leverage our networks in different parts of the state so that those decision makers and Republican committee chairmen can hear from their constituents is going to be so important to advancing our cause, but also playing a lot of defense around hurtful and damaging legislation.
Great point, Phil. And I want to add, we work on getting money in the budget. Phil and I have been a team on getting money in the budget for a very important institution, two important institutions in the heart of our district. And one is Atlanta Tech, and one is Metro Atlanta College. And those are incredibly important institutions for opening up our opportunities and giving people a way to move forward in their lives and achieve and succeed. And you got some wonderful dedicated leadership at those schools. So we work quietly, not trying to be high profile about it, but what did we get 1.2 million last year, Phil?
Double it, 2.1.
2.1, yeah, 2.1 million for the technical college. That's another place that we make an impact that's not around a bill or an issue, and it's very appreciated by the particular institution that we succeed in getting in the budget or increasing what they're getting, but it's not high profile out in the world.
I have a quick follow-up.
One of the questions came from the East Atlanta Kids Club, and I don't know the details of this appropriation issue, but there is a fund that's provided for, and I don't know all the details, but if you get in touch with Ryan there's a special fund at the state that they get substantial grants from to help the East Atlanta Kids Club. I guess I wish I knew what that was, but I don't know if Ryan's on the call and he could inform us what that program's called. There you are. Ryan, tell them what the program is that you get the grant money from.
There's one answer. I mean, I feel like I'm interrupting here. If y'all hear kids in the background, that's because we have kids in after school. Because we run out of school time programs. I'm Ryan. I'm the executive director at East Atlanta Kids Club. We serve kids from all your districts. I live in Ormwood Park. Yeah, as Paul has noted, and it's on there, it was part of American Rescue Plan funding, right? It was the funding led by Godot and GSAN, and obviously it sunsetted in July. And obviously it was important for YMCAs and Boys and Girls Clubs and larger organizations, but for folks without risk reserves and marketing and Devo teams and all that, it was increasingly critical, and it empowered us to increase the scope and scale of our services. We layered in counseling, food security programming. We extended after the summer camp program by 50%. We added back in teen programming. We tripled dosage. We doubled enrollment. We're stretching every dollar as much as we can. And for us, it was a $321,300 investment over 3 years. When it disappears, we feel that $107,000 loss. And that was from an $85 million investment, right, from ARP. I know Boost 2.0 was proposed as a $20 million investment, which is really a stopgap for what we need in the future, but would at least keep some of us whole. It didn't happen. I don't know what the likelihood of it is happening. Like, I'm clear that Republicans and Democrats don't have alignment on a lot of values, but it feels like in both rural and urban areas, there are kids that need somewhere to go after school and need a snack and need caring adults and summer camps and counseling. So how might we realize some kind of win here that keeps organizations like ours alive? It pairs with my tort reform question, but there's a reality that our expenses keep surging and our revenue keeps declining, even as we more foundation dollars, and they cannot supplant the government. So like, how do we ensure that organizations like ours aren't gone in a year, and that we can get some kind of support?
And Elena's got a message in the text around that.
So anyway, that's a budget request.
But I think maybe Representative Draper, did you want to, somebody was going to reply? Yeah.
Well, it's dumbfounding because you're absolutely right. These are bipartisan issues. These are issues that hit rural areas extremely hard. And yes, we can, certainly going the budget route is probably the way to go, and we can discuss that and figure that out. But it kind of comes back to Republican priorities. And when you hear the governor talk, the governor is talking about business and helping businesses. And like, is there a argument for why childcare increases, people going back to work and increases small businesses? Like, absolutely, we can connect those dots. And that's how we would talk to, that is how we do talk about it to him when we're teeing up these issues. But unless they make it a priority, it doesn't get done, at least not statutorily. I did want to respond in the chat to Mark's comment, because Mark, we were talking about electorally, what can you do? And Mark says, okay, well, if you apply pressure to Republicans in swing districts who are in vulnerable districts, you might force them to change their positions. And he points out that Deborah Silcox shifted her positions in 2024. Deborah Silcox was a Republican who was expected to lose her seat this term, and because of the political winds, didn't end up losing her seat. She represents a district, Sandy Springs, Roswell, and some of Buckhead too. And what I want to say about Deborah Silcox, it infuriates me. She didn't actually switch her positions. All right. So with respect to gun safety, she was approached multiple times to sign on to Democratic gun safety laws. She refused. She didn't want to do. She didn't do so. She didn't end up having to vote against gun laws because gun laws don't ever come up, right? They don't ever come up for a vote. So she wasn't put in the position that she was forced to vote against it. But she certainly did not support it. She was not pushing for it. She was not signing on to it, none of that. Yet, that was during session, January through March of 2024. Fast forward to October, November, and she's campaigning. Now she's singing a different tune. Now she's talking about how she did support those bills, even though she absolutely did not support those bills. So I think part of the challenge is making sure we draw the connection, not just between what folks say, but what they're actually doing. They're going to say whatever they need to say around election time in order to get reelected in their districts. How do we hold their feet to the fire and let the people in their districts know they're saying they did this, but they didn't actually do this? And you know what? There is another candidate in the race who would do that if elected, and that's who you need to support if those are the values of your district. So just wanted to point that out. And then also to Nancy's point, I know she says, I know there is this is a while away, but are there specific districts that you can see as more flippable? Yes. So in the House, we are 11 seats away from getting the majority, and that's actually not that much. So Republicans have 100 seats. We have 80 seats. You know, what that means is if 10 Republicans are away from their seats, we actually have a fighting chance of being able to stop a piece of legislation or whatever it is. Now, so it's an uncomfortable margin for the Republicans. The Republicans used to operating under much more comfortable margins with their legislation. Didn't matter if they lost a few of their own chamber, lost a few of their own party, excuse me, because they had more than enough votes to pass their priorities. That is becoming less and less the case. And as demographics switch in Georgia, the demographic wins regardless of what happened in 2024. I mean, they are favoring Democrats. Long-term, they are favoring Democrats. So there are 11 districts that we are hyper-focused on flipping in the next election cycle. We can certainly get you a list of what those are, but generally speaking, they're the suburban areas of Atlanta and some areas around Macon and Augusta. But we can get you a list of those. And when you think about it that way, when you think about just bite-sized pieces, 11 districts, 60,000 people in each district, it actually makes getting to the majority very possible.
Well, thank you.
Sarah, it's true that the governor, didn't he put $1 or $2 million into the targeted seats and pushed over the, kept people in office that would not have won without that huge cash infusion that he made.
Forget 1 or 2 million in those seats. He put 1 or 2 million in Deb Silcox's race alone.
There you go.
Yeah.
So I think something I'm hearing is, as you all are sharing, is when I think about what this group might be capable of, if we can pull 50 people for meetings like this, we've got an email list of a couple hundred at this point. We're going to keep growing, building relationships across Southeast Atlanta. If we could coordinate, we have the capacity to coordinate action and to focus on particular districts and to do it at quick, right, in a 1 or 2 week window of time to do some sort of action. And so I'm hearing let's get focused on the next election for sure. I did want to go back to something Representative Olalier said about like reaching out to committee chairs. I've wondered about that. I was wondering, email or calling is it really important that it's not super coordinated so it doesn't sound like a script? Or does the script sometimes work if the numbers are big enough? Like, what would be the best way to pressure in the session in this moment?
Best way is always to show up. We have the advantage of living near the Capitol. Those legislators are there. They're a captive audience when you get there if they don't try and evade you. So best way is always to show up and have an eye-to-eye, conversation, have a handshake. It's easy to ignore emails. It's easy to ignore phone calls. In fact, a lot of those emails and phone calls, it depends on the legislator whether they want to review them. There's an admin screening them, so maybe they do get reviewed, maybe they don't by the actual legislator. So
okay.
I don't think coordination is a bad thing. Like when somebody gets a flood of emails, even if it's the same email, it gets noticed. So that's not necessarily a bad thing. But I will tell you that, one of the first questions they'll ask you is, are you in my district? And if your answer is no, I live in Southeast Atlanta, they may not be as inclined to give you time. So part of the action, part of the coordination is finding people in those districts that have values aligned that can also reach out to them, either, ideally in person. And that's part of the work.
Yes. Yeah, go ahead, Paul.
There's a little lull here, so I have to bring up my favorite question. And that is, this is somewhat of a local issue with perhaps the city of Atlanta or Fulton County delegation, but it has broader impacts to other districts. And that's the failure of our assessors to properly assess commercial property. All the studies show that they're assessed at about 60% or 50% of their actual value. So you're giving a huge commercial exemption from the property that could be taxed to meet all of our needs locally. All that goes to local government, especially to our school system. So I wondered if you see anything happening at the state that might have some impact on that inequity that's happening right now in the property tax structure. Nobody wants to tackle that, huh?
Well,
Oh,
nobody has an answer. Yeah.
And I was gonna say, Senator, Paul and I have had a few conversations on this specific issue. It's something we've got to look into. Honestly, we've got to get the right folks at the table and ask the question why. And so, to Senator Orrock's point, we don't have a specific answer or response today, but we'll get together, Paul, and center that this upcoming session and see if we can get some more information and answers for you, at least to figure out what the right next step needs to look like.
Good, thanks.
All right, thanks everyone for everybody that's shared so far. I'm going to pass it over to Jacob. And I know he's been going through questions submitted in advance and those getting dropped in the chat to take several questions here in kind of the next 20 to 30 minutes or so. And again, really appreciate representatives having your time and want to give a chance to open the floor. So the
Are
many
you
people
saying what time is it now? We've been an hour. Yeah. Yeah. Sorry.
Awesome. Thank you, Chris, and thank you to our state legislators for being here. My first question that I have before I kind of go through some of the questions that have been posed in the chat, if you looked in that word cloud, another one of the big items that was really important to folks in our neighborhood and our area of Atlanta specifically was transit. And so I specifically have a question from Nathan here that I think kind of resonates with a lot of other folks in our group as well. So one thing that we're wondering is there any possibility that we can get GDOT to fund more transportation projects beyond roads, such as sidewalks, bike infrastructure, and transit? Other states, for example, flexed their federal highway dollars for these areas. And then also, as part of that, if somebody could also talk more about the Vision Zero that GDOT is looking into. I think Representative Schofield mentioned that in the chat as well, but just trying to address some of wanted to just get a question out there about transit.
You know, there's a transportation event at the depot. And it's probably week after next. I'm not going to flip through my calendar to find it, but I can. It's a knowable thing, and there's more than a couple of people on this call that there are several posts that have been, in the comments section around transportation and bad design, and we are getting this first rapid bus route that's coming through the heart of Southeast Atlanta. That's why every time you turn a corner, there's more construction over there around Grant Park and leading to the Capitol, because that's underway. But I was going to suggest if on the folks that are real honed in on transit and transportation, coming down to that reception. As somebody pointed out, we all live really close to the Capitol, and furthering that conversation and meeting people. Because the other thing that's interesting right now is that there's a bunch of aspirants in the Senate that want to run for a higher office, and when you're going to be running statewide, you have a different open ear to people that don't necessarily have to live in your backyard, but are coming to you, organized groups that are coming to you with issues. When, I mean, they're going to be run for AG, they're going to be run for governor, lieutenant governor, your labor department. I mean, there's a myriad of slots that are going to be contested, and they're going to be fighting each other for them. So, not to mention that we have the very important Ossoff election, that'll keeping him in the U.S. Senate will be there as well. But I'll find out about that transportation thing and stay in touch. I'm not on that committee, but we have Democratic friends on that committee.
Awesome. Thank you. And I guess one other question I have before I turn over to some of our participants is here in Atlanta, of course, we have our municipal elections later this year, right? We're going to be electing council members and there's a mayoral election. How do you all engage with local officials here in Atlanta? Like, is there kind of advocacy or pressure that we can be putting on some folks here locally that trickles up to you all in the Capitol? Just like, what is y'all's relationship like with our local and municipal officials here?
Well, I was just down at the swearing in for Mo Ivory to move into the a position of the on the county commission, and we have. I think we have some robust relationships. Speaking for myself, and partnership, or you will get constituent issues. People don't know who to call, and they'll call one of our offices about something that's really firmly in the council members, the city council members wheelhouse. And so we refer people and we follow up, and I won't give a lot of particular examples, but that's to say that yes, we are in relationship and we have convenings together. I chair the Atlanta delegation. Sonia Halpern chairs the Fulton County delegation, and we have that's the Senate side, and we have the House side, and so we get communications from them, and that they send people representing them to our delegation meetings. And so yeah, there's ongoing. I mean, when something about traffic on United and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We work back and forth. I don't know if anybody else has examples of that, but.
Well, I was just going to, this is Representative Schofield, I was just going to echo a little what you said. We have weekly delegation meetings, Atlanta delegation, Fulton County delegation. I am the vice chair of Fulton County. We'll be having elections for the new slate of leaders for the Atlanta delegation, but we meet weekly during session, and then we also have joint meetings with Fulton and Atlanta to address some of these issues. So it's important that certain issues that you want addressed, you contact us, and depending on the group that's presenting that week, we can raise those issues. And then don't be afraid to reach out to us and ask us to see if we can coordinate meetings with those that you can't reach, and I gladly help get some folks together in the room with GDOT. And I know you've done this before, but the more you stay in front of us, the better your issues will get addressed. You got to keep your issues relevant, real, and at the front of the line.
Just be aware that if you need some pressure at a particular key point in the legislature, and it's in our interest to do that, make sure we know it so we can help to add to the pressure that's on people. Right,
because they're hearings to show up for, et cetera. I'm sure everybody on this call knows this, but maybe they don't know that Paul served how many years in the legislature?
12.
12 years in the legislature.
And I lobbied for 10 after that. So
that's right. And health and homelessness and housing are in your wheelhouse.
One of the things that's always true about a meeting is that if you got an issue at stake and there's a committee meeting, you need to have your eyes on the people making the decision. So it's a big influence to actually be there in person.
Yeah.
So therefore, there's some hearings that are critical. We could maybe get some people to go down there and stand in the audience and let people know we got little signs on us, or a yes on something or other, and so that there's a crowd in the thing that's looking at the decision makers.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, that's super helpful. I think one of the things that we're really trying to work on and think about as a group is how can we educate folks to kind of think about where are the best points for us to put pressure. Is it at the city level? Is it at the county level? Is it at the state level? And so that was really helpful. I appreciate
And there's
that.
a school
So
board too. You have the school
yeah,
board.
you're right.
Yeah.
You're right. There is a school board.
Uh-huh.
My mom's a teacher too, and forgot
Yeah.
all about them. So
And we've got Jason Esteves as a senator now who chaired the Atlanta School Board for, I don't know, 8 years or more. He was a very effective leader on education.
yeah. Right. Okay. Cool. So I'm gonna start just calling on folks that I see have submitted questions and also submitted some ahead of time. So first I'm gonna call on Alex from Oakland City. I know you have I see a question in the chat about data centers. I know you had some other questions that you submitted prior.
Oh Lord, probably more than we have time for, but thank you so much for being here. I'm walking home from the West End MARTA station, so I am crashing this. Thanks Southeast folks, but I am in Phil's district. My question is about data centers. I think that's the one I want to ask. Can you talk about any upcoming legislative action around energy usage, the fair tax policies, land use? Just speak to some of those. Thanks.
Well, in terms of tax policies, breaking news, no big surprise. They have been working to lower to move closer and closer to flat tax, which is a reactionary and regressive approach to taxes that has been pushed by right wingers around the country forever and a day. And the governor is recommending that they yet again lower the tax. And they it been up at 6%, I believe. It tops out at 6%. And that's income tax. And now he wants to go down to 5.1. And of course, what that does is reduce revenues. And they do the big fanfare. Oh, we're cutting your taxes. Well, no, you know whose taxes are really getting cut? The high payers, the big dollar people are getting the benefit of that. And cutting taxes, what comes with that is cutting services. That's the part that's never said out loud. It's real sexy to cut taxes, but oh, hey, you don't want the ambulance to come to your house when you got that heart attack victim, needing somebody there in 4 minutes. But yeah, they're whacking taxes, and we are, by the way, breaking news, 49th in the country on mental health services for the youth. 49th. For school counselors, we're funding at the level of counselors assigned 450 kids as opposed to 250, which is the standard. And you can go on and on. We're 40th in the country. Only 10 states are worse than us in terms of a good place to raise a family. We've got a lot of work to do. And Alex, did I get away from your original question?
Thanks, Nan. No, that's helpful. Data centers specifically.
Oh, yeah,
it's my
data
understanding, that they're not taxed for the sort of fair market value. They're these massive complexes, but they're paying next to nothing into local tax bases and such. I don't know if there's just anything that or the energy side of data centers, but they're a big concern.
Yeah, both aspects. And there was an effort to cut off their tax incentive, the tax break that they were getting, and the governor vetoed the bill. We passed the bill, but the governor vetoed it this past year. It's going to come back up, but they are greatly advantaged, and enormous suck up enormous amounts of, they take up a lot of land without a lot of jobs being produced, and they use enormous amounts of energy.
And I'll just mention on the data centers bill that came up last year, that was one, I'll candidly tell you, caught a lot of us flat-footed. I mean, this is kind of a new, for some issue, and evolving issue. And I mean, I'll tell you, I didn't understand the implications when I was voting on that bill. And, usually you have, advocacy organizations advising you on some of this stuff, but we didn't hear from those advocacy organizations before that vote. So all that to say, if
That's
you're someone
true.
like Alex, who clearly has a familiarity or perhaps expertise on issues like that, don't feel shy about reaching out to your legislator and letting them know, hey, this bill is coming up. You may already know this, but in case you don't, this is my view on it and this is my background. And if you'd like to talk more, let's, because that is something, you know, I regularly take constituents up on. If they tell me they're an expert on something and it's something that's coming up, I want to understand it from every perspective. And I love hearing from constituents because I view that as a perhaps less biased perspective than a paid lobbyist.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alex, for the question, and thanks, Senator Orrock and Representative Draper, for your thoughtful responses. I'm going to turn over to Jamie to ask their question that I see posted in the chat here.
Hi, thanks for doing that. My name is Jamie. I live in Boulevard Heights, and actually it wasn't something that I thought about asking about when I completed the initial registration form, but just even this week, my young adult son has been attempting to access Georgia Vocational Rehab resources since 2022, and we have gone through, and he was accepted, but we've been passed through 6 different case managers along the and obviously I don't think any of those case managers were falling down on the job. I just think that they were expected to do too much, but it galled me to see how much in 2023, this record amount of money that the state returned to the federal government. And it was for things like the Bud McCall grant. So things I could be paying for my son's college right now, if we were able to access those services. And, you know, then hearing what the surplus is, there have been so many instances as a caregiver, whether it's for my children and my disabled son in particular, or for my elderly mother before it passed, where it just seemed like state services were so inclined to make sure that they weren't actually available, and would prefer to see people fall out of the system and fall through the cracks rather than to really attend to those needs that we think are being met on a regular basis. So I'm looking for advice for how to advocate for that. Not necessarily for my son, but in general as an issue. It really gets me going.
Thank you for that, Jamie. And I'm sorry that you've had to kind of deal with the inconveniences of just how difficult it can be sometimes to access resources or even be pointed in the right direction. I always say, I mean, most of our departments are facing like really difficult human resource challenges. You have few people doing the jobs of 2-3 people, right? Retention rates are very low. And so if you can imagine, it's just not a great recipe for running a business when you're losing talent and institutional knowledge and you're constantly having to retrain people. They're not making a ton of money to begin with. So it's definitely something that we'll be focused on next week during the budget hearings. I imagine every single commissioner is going to be asking to support his or her workforce and just making sure that there's a baseline of benefits and compensation that is livable and fair, one. And two, that enables that workforce to meet the demands of constituents like you. And so I always say, if you're having difficulty reaching a department for whatever reason, reach out to us. That's probably while we might have some difficulties and challenges given the political realities advancing legislation that we've talked about this evening, what we can do is use our name and our office to escalate matters. And it could be for compensation, it could be for Department of Labor, if you're out of work and you're trying to access benefits. It could be for, in your case, Jamie, accessing services for your son. We send an email, we make a call, and fast track and accelerate those concerns and that help. So do not hesitate to reach out to your state legislator, particularly around issues of just unresponsive departments.
Thank
Hey,
you. And
Jamie,
that was definitely something that we considered and would be moving to. And like I said, with the case managers that we've had, we would meet people who were qualified and interested, seemed to get it, and then we would go through gaps and eventually find someone, you know, a couple months later and find out that it's because they left. We're able to craft a plan that works for my son. What just boggles my mind, though don't think that I won't contact you all for some help. I am awaiting an email back from GVR right now. But the people who can't make,
Right.
Oh, yeah.
can't
Right.
make, I mean, I just can't believe that this is the actual state of things.
And Jamie, this is Rep. Schofield. And again, we are sorry that you have to vacate on the depths of which you've had to, because the system has definitely got many challenges. And as a person that lives with a chronic illness, I don't want to hear about your understaffed and your other problems when we need some help. I've been working on this issue for a while in all aspects of healthcare. And the problem is the lack of transparency of what goes on and how to get the resources and get you what you need. So know that this is not something that's new. And my heart always goes back to the same question you asked. What about the people that can't advocate, don't know how to advocate? So we constantly I know I stay on the heels of these agencies for accountability and accountability in their funding and their staffing. And yes, they will come to budget hearing next week and talk about the workplace shortage. And it is real. But, you know, as the person on the other side, while real that needs these services, we've got to find a way when there's a surplus sitting there to do better. So no, I'm a strong advocate for you. I gave you my information. I'll give you some tips on how to get to the people that you need to get to and the things you need to say and the ways you need to effectively advocate.
I would add that of this crowd that's running Georgia, a dozen years ago, just whacked off cost of living for state retirees. People had worked their entire career for the state and are in our retirement system, and they just, with the click of their fingers, oh, here's one of the ways we're going to balance our budget. We're not going to give COLAs to state retirees anymore. And can you imagine if your retirement doesn't, Social Security, for example, does have the cost of living factored in. You'll get a thing in the mail. Okay, cost of living is this, so this how much is going to be added to your Social Security check. Not in Georgia, and I've got myself on the retirement committee for this coming session as an ex officio, because we've been working on that. But that goes to the question of people not feeling inclined to stay with the state because they're getting screwed, and they go on and leave and don't stay in service. And I mean, telling you, they had a 300% gap over at the Department of Corrections. And, it's a place where people are dying from that. And we've had waiting lists, and we've with some Democratic work, we've whacked away at some of them, but they immediately fill up again. And all of this goes to we need to change who's running the state. The stakes are very high on moving these folks out of the positions that they're in. That these folks mean the politicos that are making these judgment calls.
Thank you, everybody.
Real people are suffering. Yeah.
And thank you, Jamie, for the advocacy, not just for your son, but for all disabled folks. Definitely really, really appreciate that. Kelly, I see you have your hand up.
Yeah, I was just wondering if the legislators that are still on the call, if they can re-put their information. This is Kelly from Lakewood Heights.
Hi.
So I was wondering if the legislators could put their information into the chat once more for all of us who didn't catch it at the top of the hour, so that we can know how to reach out to you. So any emails, phone numbers, ways that we can get in touch with you. I'd appreciate it.
Awesome.
And we're all on the, we've all got all of our stuff up online if you just put our name in. But if you don't have it already.
Yeah, we'll share it. We'll share everything after this
We
meeting
also,
as well.
people ought to be aware that there's a state legislative website, Georgia legis.ga.gov. Gets you in touch with all the legislators and tracks every piece of legislation that's going through. You can look at the latest drafts. So that's a great resource for if you're doing research on some particular piece of legislation.
Awesome. Cool. Now for our last question, I am going to quickly turn it over to Alira from Lakewood Heights, who had a question about vacant properties. Alira, are you on to ask your question?
I am, yes, thank you. And I'm actually going to kind of incorporate something from Kelly as well, but yes. So we wanted to know, how could the state legislature work with neighborhoods in Southwest Atlanta to connect with other industries such as technology or manufacturing to develop vacant properties and empty land parcels that could generate economic development in these communities? So we have large parcels of land and vacancies in our business district in Lakewood Heights specifically. Thank you.
Kim, are you involved in any activity in Lakewood Heights, which is right in your part of your?
No, I'm not, man.
I think, Alira, one of the things is we plan to have a session with our city council people sometime next year. So it's sort of an economic development issue.
This year.
Should be prior to the election season, but that should be an issue that city council is going to focus in on with the planning department, their economic development department. And so maybe we could be asking those kind of questions when we get city council people together.
Okay, so if we're not getting a response from city council people, then who would we need to contact?
Feel free to,
I mean, I
give
can
me
help.
a
Yeah,
call
or give me a call. We can help them with that.
Okay, thank you.
But that question is more along their purview. But yeah, we can help you.
And you may suggest to them that they maybe need a new city council person.
If they can't respond to constituents.
Right.
And, it makes me think, Alira, about that at the start of this session, Representative Lallier was talking about some of the bipartisan opportunities, and thinking about how to develop housing. And so I was wondering that as you were asking your question too, of to what extent can that focus on kind of these vacant properties in places where tons of people want to live? That would be a great way to bring down prices. So I love that you raised it here. Let's keep that conversation going, because I know that's a concern for a lot of people on the call. Jacob, I'll pass over to you for kind of a closing word. I'm going to drop one more in the chat. If anybody's not on our Facebook group already, please do join us and engage with us. We're all building this together. Small D democratic in how we want to run this organization.
It helps us a lot if we have everybody's email address, because then it's a more direct communication. But we ask you to go and check the Facebook page and involved in the chit chat that goes on there as well.
Yep. Awesome. Thanks, Chris. Thanks, Paul. And I want to be respectful of everybody's time. So I know we're at 6:30. I want to thank everybody for joining us tonight. I want to thank our state legislators. And I want to thank our neighbors, our community members, our community leaders for taking time out of your Thursdays to come and have what I think was a very productive and informative discussion about how we can best make the change that we want to see here in our community. And so, like Chris said, we're a group of neighbors living in Southeast Atlanta. We have a Facebook group that Chris posted in the chat. We'll also send out an email that will include links, and we'll also work to gather all of the contact information and some of the information that we heard tonight and share it out with everybody, so we can also share resources with folks as well, as we're all looking to think about how we can weather the next 4 years together. So really looking forward to doing all that with you all. And I know all this change that we want to see is going to start here locally. And I'm really excited to be doing it with all of you all. So looking forward to a great, time engaging, and, try to not watch the news on Monday, and, spend time with the people that you care about, and those that you love. But we're all in this together, and looking forward to being in this fight with you all. But thanks you all. This was great.
I thought it was great too, and this is a very vigorous, robust participation level that we're seeing going on, and and Kim just posted about a youth ambassador program, and we have a page program in the Senate and the House where kids between 12 and 18 can come spend a day at the Capitol. Bring a friend, I always say, because you want to have somebody to hang with, but you're trained as a page, and then you're on the floor with the senators and the House members, and have a lunch together, et cetera. But so those of you who have kids or grandkids in that window, that's another way, and the parent can come down too. That's just another way to connect in and participate. And I know people that came as kids as pages, and guess what? Now they're elected and sitting in seats in the House and the Senate. So
I love that. Yeah, I definitely think there's a lot of work we need to do to just rebuild civic life in America. And I think it's starting right here on the Zoom call. So thank you all seriously for being part of it. Thank you, Representative Draper, Senator Orrock, Representative Olaleye, Representative Schofield, and Senator Parent for joining us. We really appreciate the time. Looking forward to a great year of working together and just building relationships and advocating for the issues that we care about. Thank you all so much. Have a great rest of your night. Have a great weekend.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Have a good night, y'all.
Have a good night, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I love all those faces. Isn't it great?
Yeah, same. It was awesome. See, people we know, but also like people who are joining and participating for the first time. And the outreach was awesome for this to get the word out.
Great job, y'all. Super. Okay. Till
Man, thank you so much. Really,
thanks for joining.
And just even thinking about like several of the people that came to our steering committee meeting were people that found us at the Benteen Fall Fest. And so it's one of these interesting things where it's like you take a risk, spending a little money to sponsor a tent, and like here we are. So thank you.
Thank you.
It was a great coverage of all the different neighborhoods too. That was amazing.
Yes.
Agreed.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night, y'all.
Thank you all
Thank
so much.
you. Have a good night.
Yeah, be well.
Yeah, it's great to have Lakewood Heights represented so well tonight in the group. It's actually showed up in the cloud, was the neighborhood. So we're looking to have at least one person from Lakewood Heights join our steering committee. Just so like as we publicize that, reach out and email. So feel free to connect with us about it.
Absolutely. And it's great to have so many cohorts.
Yeah, it's great.
Be well.
Keep spreading the word.
Oh, yeah. And keep doing the work.
Yep.
Be well.
You too. All right, as host here, I'm gonna close out the meeting unless there's any last comments or reflections about the experience.
I wondered if Reverend Johnson would make a comment about his organization. I think they're very active in the religious community in town. Can you tell us what you do, Reverend Johnson?
And he may have stepped off. He may have stepped away. A lot of people were messaging me in the chat. Got to do bedtime. Got to do dinner. Got to drive to pick up kids. Got to this. So, he may have stepped away and just have his camera off still here.
Got to stick to my New Year's resolution. Headed to the Y.
Excellent. Nice work.
I guess.
Uh-oh. Sounds like the energy's fading. No, stay at it. Stay at it.
No, but you guys energize, so I gotta hit the pavement and make sure I'm doing the work. So, but it takes energy to do the work, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. For
Be
sure.
well, everyone.
Thanks, Gloria. See you soon.
Be well.
Sansony, I know you were helping us take notes in that. There's so much covered. I just saved the chat and we have recording as well. So why don't we stop the recording? I'm going to stop it now.